Good afternoon, Leopards. Thank y'all. Thank you so much. Thank you, and congratulations to all of our graduates. To President Barley, thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership and for your commitment, to Bob, to the board, to all of our faculty and staff, but most importantly, to all of our families and to all of our students. We're here because of you. And we're here to let you know just how much we admire you, appreciate you, and celebrate everything you have done to make today a reality. So congratulations. So, good news and bad news. Bad news is, by the end of my speech, if you have loans, they are still owed to the university. Good news is, since I'm now a member of your class, if y'all ever want to commiserate or gripe about it, drinks are on me. Just holler at me. And also, the good news that I also want to share with you is this, is that for many of you, whether it was, in some cases I've heard 3 and 3.5 years, in many cases 4 years, in my case it took me 5 years. You've now gotten to this graduation day, and honestly, you've gotten to this day where I'm sure if your experience was anything like my experience, when you first walked onto your college campus, and pretty much for almost every day since, every single conversation that you had with people would always start with a singular question. And that question is, so, what's your major? What are you studying? What are you going to do with that? And now every single question began with that singular, every single conversation began with that singular question. And to be very honest, like, I didn't decide my major until probably the second semester of my junior year. So it got to the point that I just started making stuff up so people stopped asking me the question. The good news is that I can tell you right now, that question will soon come to an end. And I say that for this reason, where when you were asked that question before, it felt like it was the most important and the most weighty question you would ever be asked, because every conversation, it truly determined how the conversation would go, depending on the answer that you would give. It felt like no other question mattered. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. I received my undergraduate degree about 17 years ago. And the truth is, nobody ever asks me anymore, hey, Wes, what did you major in college? The question doesn't come up. No one asked me about the tests that I took on April 3rd of 2001. Nobody asked me about the paper that I stayed up all night writing. Because that question will eventually fade. The reason that question will eventually fade is because the reason people asked you that question before, it was because the answer that you gave would help to determine, in their opinion, not just your trajectory, but your legacy. And that's no longer the case. The most important question you're going to be asked from this point on is not necessarily going to be what was your major, or what did you study, or how did you do in X class. The most important question people are going to ask you is, who did you choose to fight for? Who did you choose to advocate for when it wasn't easy, or it wasn't convenient, or it wasn't politically expedient? Who did you choose to stand up for when you knew you might lose some friends or some supporters or some endorsers because of it, but you did it because you felt it was the right thing to do, and you did it because you felt it was the thing that God was asking you to do? Who mattered to you when they didn't have to? And right now, you're probably getting a whole collection of different advice from a variety of different people, to include family and friends and faculty members and supporters who are all going to give you counsel and advice about how you need to spend this next phase and about how you need to spend this next period of your life. The jobs you need to take, the salaries you need to demand, the place where you need to live, who you should be dating. And the truth is that the majority of that advice, the majority of that counsel is coming from a truly good place. It's coming from a place of love, it's coming from a place of support, and it's coming from a place of personal perspective where people are trying to give you the best advice that they know. The counsel and the guidance and the hope that I would give you today is take it, embrace it, listen to it, process it, and at the end of the day, be still within yourself and make the decision that you and your heart believe is right. What that's going to require is there are going to be some people who might be disappointed in the choice that you make in terms of the place that you go or the job that you take or the grad school you choose. There might be some people who will tell you that this is not a good decision. And I ask that you take it, embrace it, process it, and still follow your own heart as you're making the decisions about where you're going to go and the next steps that you want to take with your own life. And I ask you that for two separate reasons. The first reason that I ask you to do that is because it's important for your own mental health that you do that. It's important for your own freedom and your own peace of mind that the decisions that you are making are ones that you are making on your own behalf with your own opinion about what your best interest is at heart. I read a book once. It's a book called Remembering Denny. And it's about this young man who was at Yale University, and it was actually written by one of his classmates, and how Denny, when he first graduated from college, he graduated at the top of his class from his college. He actually graduated, ended up becoming a Rhodes Scholar, and Life magazine, I'm not sure if Life still exists, but when people read magazines, there was a Life magazine. And Life magazine featured Denny on the cover of Life magazine. And the cover of the magazine had a picture of Denny, and it said, "America's Future." It got to the point that Denny was actually nicknamed by his classmates Mr. President. Because not only was he president of his class, but everyone just assumed that Denny's trajectory was that he was one day going to be the president of the United States, and everyone would sing "Hail to the Chief" as he walked by. You fast forward 25 years later, after Denny actually finished his undergrad experience, Denny went on to be a very successful lawyer. He became a tenured professor at Georgetown University. He worked as a mid to senior level official in the State Department. Denny was, by all categories, was doing extraordinary work. Was representing his family well and was representing his country well. And 25 years after the time that Denny graduated from college, Denny also took his own life. By all measurements, Denny was doing great. Now, he wasn't necessarily on the trajectory to go to the Oval Office. He didn't necessarily live up to the expectations that his classmates and the weight that everyone else put on him. And despite doing well for Denny, that wasn't enough. Despite living a powerful and a life of service, for Denny, for other people, it still wasn't enough. That Denny felt that when people looked at him, they looked at him with this sense of almost a sense of disappointment. And 25 years after he walked across a graduation stage as the cover person on Life magazine, he took his own life because the weight of those expectations became too much. Being comfortable with who you are and your trajectory is imperative. Because the truth is that there's nothing that any of us are going to do that is going to please everybody. But the most important person who it's important that when you look at, they look back at you with a sense of pride and admiration is yourself. That the most important thing that you can do is make sure that you are following your own heart, following your own path, and knowing that you, right now, and everything you do, that is enough. And that's enough fulfillment for you to continue to live your life. The second reason that I ask you to do that is for this reason, because it's exactly what the world needs right now. The world doesn't need you to be a really good version of what someone interprets you to be. The world doesn't need you to follow a path that other people have laid free and think that that's necessarily the path that you need to take. The world needs you to find the thing that breaks your heart and go after it. The world needs you to find really hard and complex problems and put new and creative solutions to try to solve them. Because the truth is, the only certainty we have right now is uncertainty. And the only way that we are going to combat that, the only way that we are going to go after it, and the only way that we are going to come out victorious is if we have people who are willing to be creative about the solutions we are willing to approach them with. People who are willing to be brave and courageous and fearless when it comes to attacking them. And that means you being your best you. Not being an impressive version of somebody else. But you being passionate about the thing that makes you passionate. And knowing that's exactly what the world needs when the world needs it. I remember once when I was working in finance and I had a job working as an investment banker, and frankly, everyone told me it was a great job. And I was doing well, and I remember once I was speaking with my grandparents, and I went up to the Bronx to go see them in the same house that they raised us in. And I remember actually sitting down, and my grandmother was cooking up some food, and I went and sat down with my grandmother and my grandfather, and my grandfather asked me, he said, "So what exactly do you do?" And my grandmother, and I was trying to actually finish up a bite of pig's feet, and I was taking my time on it, and then my grandmother kind of saved me. And she looked at my grandfather and she said, "Dear, you know what he does. He's a banker." And she said, "In fact, I'm gonna go ask Ms. Johnson to go give her deposit to him when she goes to go deposit her Social Security check again." My grandmother believed that I worked as a bank teller. She didn't know what I did. The thing that she knew was that I had a steady job and how important that was for our family. My grandmother didn't know that if she asked Ms. Johnson to come see me at my work, Ms. Johnson wouldn't have been able to make it past security. I remember being on the train one night at 11 o'clock at night, and I just finished work, and I was on my way home. And I was listening to, and this is how old it was, I was listening to my iPod Shuffle, actually. And the iPod Shuffle, you had like 1,000 songs on them, and you put it on shuffle because it just plays randomly whatever songs it wanted to play. But I really believe deeply that at that moment, the iPod Shuffle picked the exact song that I needed to hear at the exact right moment, because I'm sitting there on the train and I have my buds in, and then the voice of a woman named Lauryn Hill comes on my earphones. So for those who don't know, Lauryn Hill is a hip-hop R&B artist who I think put together one of the best albums in addition to the E Street Band. Put together one of the best albums in music history. It's an album called The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Yeah. She won so many awards that year. I think they were like making up awards to give her. This album is so crazy. But she has a song on there, and it's number 15 on the album, if y'all want to go check it out. But It's the title track, and she says something in that song that hit me at a moment when I needed to be hit most by it. And she says this line where she says, "And every time I tried to be what someone else thought of me, so caught up I wasn't able to achieve. But deep in my heart, the answer, it wasn't me. So I made up my mind to define my own destiny." What she, in essence, was saying at that moment is exactly the message that I think all of us want to share with you at this moment. Is that the answer of not just where your next steps are going, but the answer of where your destiny is going is already within you. You are going to take various inputs from people. You are going to have various life experiences that are going to shift and move you in different directions and different things that are going to educate the decisions that you are going to make. But everything that you need, it's already there. The power in defining your own destiny is just simply going to be about your courageousness to be able to go and embrace it and stand in that truth. And to know that everything that you deliver from that is going to be exactly what the world is asking you to give. You know, I'll close. The first time I actually came to Pennsylvania was when I was sent to a military school when I was 13 years old. I got in some issues when I was younger, and so I had a mandatory year in military school, which actually turned into an amazing experience for me. But when I was finishing up that school, there was a gentleman who was named Colonel Billy G. Murphy, and he was the Commandant of Cadets, so he was the one who was in charge of all the cadets. And this dude was a 3-time Vietnam veteran. He was as tough as nails. My plebe brothers used to laugh. I think we only saw him smile once, and I think that was an accident when we saw him smile. But he was fair and tough, but he loved us. But he was losing weight really quickly. And one day he called the entire Corps of Cadets together and for a speech that he wanted to give us. And I mean, he was losing weight at the pace that we used to laugh and say it looked like he was wearing his father's uniform. And during this speech that he gave us, we were all sitting inside the pews of the chapel, and he was standing up in the pulpit. And during this speech, he told us that he was diagnosed with cancer, and he had to leave the school. That speech that he gave us that day was, in essence, his farewell address to us. But he said something that day that will always sit with me. He said, when it's time for you to leave here, whether it's time for you to leave this school, whether it's time for you to leave your job, whether it's time for you to leave your neighborhood, or when it's time for you to leave this planet, make sure that it mattered that you were ever even here. Make sure that it mattered that you were ever even here, because none of us are promised anything. We're not promised more days, more weeks, more years. No one has ever tapped me in the shoulder and said, you know what, Wes, you've got like 4,564 days left, so pace yourself. And nobody ever will, and the truth is, I'm okay with that. So the only thing that I know is that while we're here, let's do something with it. Let's push. Let's fight. Let's cajole. Let's love. Let's use everything that we've got, everything we've been taught, every God-given skill we've been given, and everything at our disposal to make it matter that we were ever even here in the first place. These degrees, this institution, this alumna group that you're a part of means everything you say, people will pay attention to it simply because you said it. And so the thing that we ask is that you go out there and say something. Use that. Stress that. And go define your own destinies. Congratulations, and bless you guys for all you do and all you'll continue to do.